In Ecclesiastes 3, Solomon continues to describe life's vanity, but this time in verses 1 through 11, he focuses on the unstoppable march of time. Time shoves us along, whether we want to move forward or not. And as time shoves us along against our will, we're faced with all sorts of events in this life, some good and some bad, that are completely beyond our control, and many times completely beyond our ability to understand. He says in verse 1, there is an appointed time for everything, and there is a time for every event under heaven. And then he provides a list of 14 positive things that happen to us in life and 14 negative things. So you have positive things like the births of new babies that brings us joy and happiness. But then we also have funerals that balances out whatever joy and happiness we had with sadness and loss. We weep and we laugh and we mourn and we dance, and you see life is just this back and forth, up and down emotional roller coaster, so that one day you're feeling happy and then the next day you're feeling sad. And those fluctuations can occur multiple times, even in one day and even in 1 hour. And this list hits on every aspect of life's vanity. Life is temporary and we can't keep it. You cannot hang on to the good things and keep them forever, because they're going to be balanced out by the bad things. And life is unpredictable and I can't control it. So not only can I not hang on to the good things, I cannot stop the bad things. And life is baffling and I can't understand it. Many of these good and bad things that happen to us, we just don't understand why. What in the world is the purpose of experiencing this tragedy over here? Or even if something good happens to us, we don't understand, how did I deserve for this great thing to happen to me? And life is broken and unfair and I can't fix it. Many of the things that happen to us in life are totally unfair and make no sense whatsoever, but it happened and I can't fix it and I can't change it because I'm being pushed along by time, whether I want to be pushed along or not, because life is on repeat and I can't stop the cycle and the unstoppable march of time. And so you can see in verses 9 and 10 why he would say, what profit is there in the end? Because if all the good things are canceled out by the bad things and all the bad things are canceled out by the good things, well, what do you have in the end? If there's 14 positives and 14 negatives, you end up with a net balance of 0. And in verse 10, I think the point is, as part of the curse of sin in this world, God has plagued us with this sense of vanity so that we occupy ourselves trying to break free from it to no avail. He says in verse 11, he has made everything appropriate in its time. He has also set eternity in their heart, yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning, even to the end. So God has designed us to realize in our hearts there has to be more to life than this. There must be life beyond the sun, and there must be some greater meaning behind all of these events in life under the sun, but God designed it so it's impossible for us to figure it out. So the book of Ecclesiastes isn't saying life is meaningless, it's saying that we can't figure out what that meaning is. And even if we believe in God, we still won't know what all these good and bad events in our lives mean in the grand scheme of eternity. And so again, in verses 12 and 13, we have a section telling us to just rejoice and to do good and to enjoy the gifts of food and drink and the rewards of your labor. But the only way that's possible is if we stop trying to fight against the march of time, or we stop trying to control life's events or understand life's events, or if we stop trying to hang on to the good things forever and stop all the bad things from happening. We just have to accept that life is 50% good and 50% bad, and it's all going to balance itself out, and we're not going to understand any of it. But the joy comes in letting all that go and saying we don't have to understand or control it because God understands all of it and God is in control. In fact, back in verse 1, he says there is an appointed time for everything. God is the one who is appointing these various seasons in life. Verse 11, God has made everything appropriate in its time. And now in verse 14, I know that everything God does will remain forever. There is nothing to add to it. There is nothing to take from it, for God has so worked that men should fear him. In other words, he's confident that God is using all of these temporary life events to serve eternal purposes that will remain forever. And even though we think if we were in control, we would arrange life's events differently, and maybe we would do 80% good and 20% bad, or maybe 100% good and 0% bad. But he's saying actually the way God does things is is perfect. All the good things he allows to happen to you are perfectly timed. And all the terrible things he allows to happen to you are also perfectly timed. And all of it has a purpose in his grand scheme of eternity. And even though we work so hard to change this life and to make things different so that it's not vain anymore, God designed it so we would fail. And instead, we would turn to fear him and to trust that he knows exactly what he's doing. So when I'm confused and when I'm angry about the brokenness and unfairness of things and the fleeting nature of life and the back and forth between good and bad, it doesn't have to stress me out anymore. It doesn't have to cause me great vexation of heart. I can just trust God that he knows what he's doing with every season of life. For us, in verse 15, we feel like we're stuck on this perpetual loop. So there's nothing new under the sun, and whatever we experience in the present or the future has already happened in the past. And there's nothing we can do to change the past because it's already come and gone. But when it says God seeks what has passed by, that's a difficult verse, but it seems like it's saying God can redeem the past. He can take all of these life events, whether good or bad, that have passed us by, and he can redeem those things. He's looking to bring meaning and purpose out of those things, even when we can't find any meaning or purpose in them. Now in verses 16 and 17, he looks out and he sees evil where good should be. And he acknowledges there's nothing he can do to fix the brokenness and unfairness of this life, but he can rest knowing in verse 17 that one day God is going to fix it all. He doesn't have to spend his life banging his head against the wall, trying to rid the world of injustice, because he knows God is going to take care of that in the end. And in verses 18 through 21, he says, as far as we know, we're not any better off in the end than the animals. We like to think, hey, we're special. We're a higher species than the animals. We're more intelligent. And so our life isn't vain, because look at all the great things that we can build and accomplish as human beings that animals cannot. But in the end, we all just die and we go to the same place. And maybe you think that human beings are superior to animals and our souls are going to ascend up to God, but the beasts, they're just going to descend down to the ground. But he says, you don't know that. We can't see any of that in this life. Death is the great equalizer, and we can't hold on to our lives any more than the animals can. And even though that seems frustrating and unfair, he finishes in verse 22 with another verse about joy and saying, look, just stop trying to hang on to your life. Stop acting like you're not going to die, because it's only through the acceptance of our inevitable death that allows us to live life to the fullest and enjoy every moment while we have it. And so the main point of this chapter is that I may not understand what everything in this life means, but God does. And that gives me peace. And so the application for us is to trust that God knows what he's doing in every season of our life. In Romans 8:28, Paul says, we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. God is the master at orchestrating every event in our life, whether good or bad, to move us toward being more like him and his son Jesus. And that's why this chapter points to Jesus, because when he came to this earth, he submitted himself to the vanity of time's unstoppable march. And Jesus experienced what it was like to have good things happen to him, yes, but also so many senseless, evil, broken, unfair things, even to the point of being crucified. And yet he took everything that happened in his life, good or bad, and redeemed it all and resurrected from the grave to show us that all of it ultimately was meant to accomplish something great, the salvation of all mankind. And so our prayer today is, Father, even though we have no idea what you are doing in the different seasons of our life, and even though life seems so random and unfair and inexplicable, give us the faith that you know exactly what you're doing, because everything you choose to do with our life is perfect and remains forever.